Judge plays truth or lie with royal guard in court, not knowing he's a legal genius with high IQ. Marcus stood straight and tall in his bright red royal guard uniform at the back of the busy courtroom. His face showed no feelings as he watched everyone. The big room was filled with people who came to see the famous case. They whispered to each other and looked at their phones while waiting for the judge. Judge Peterson walked in, and everyone stood up. He was an older man with gray hair and glasses who many people feared. He sat down in his big chair and looked at the papers in front of him. "Call the next witness," he said in a loud voice. Marcus walked forward when they called his name. People turned to look at him. Most thought he was just a simple guard who happened to see something important on the night of the big museum theft. No one knew his secret. "State your name for the record," said the court clerk. "Marcus Reynolds, sir," Marcus said in a clear, strong voice. Judge Peterson looked up from his papers. He studied Marcus with curious eyes. The judge was known across the city for his unusual ways of getting to the truth. Some lawyers did not like his methods, but no one could argue with his results. "Mr. Reynolds, you are a royal guard, correct?" asked Judge Peterson. "Yes, Your Honor. 5 years of service," Marcus answered. The judge smiled a little. "I like to make these proceedings more interesting. Have you heard of my special way of questioning witnesses?" Marcus shook his head. "No, Your Honor." "Well, you're about to find out. We're going to play a game I call Truth or Lie," the judge announced to the whole room. People in the crowd sat up straighter, suddenly more interested. What no one in the room knew was that Marcus was not just a royal guard. Under his neat uniform and blank face, he had a mind that very few could match. Marcus had 3 law degrees from the best schools. He had an IQ of 165. He had read more law books than most of the lawyers in the room. "Here's how we play," Judge Peterson explained. "I will ask you questions about what you saw that night at the museum. You will answer. Then I will say if I think you are telling the truth or lying. It's a good way to find out what really happened." The prosecutor looked nervous. This was not normal court procedure. The defense lawyer smiled, thinking this might help his client. Marcus just nodded, keeping his face calm. Inside, his brilliant mind was already working through the rules of evidence, thinking about what questions might come and planning his answers carefully. "Let's begin," said the judge. "Where exactly were you standing when you first noticed something unusual at the museum that night?" Marcus took a small breath. "I was at the northeast corner of the museum grounds, Your Honor, by the tall oak tree. I was exactly 23 steps from the side entrance. It was 10:42 p.m., and I had just checked my watch." The judge raised his eyebrows, surprised by the detailed answer. "That's very specific. I'm going to say truth." Marcus nodded once. "Correct, Your Honor." Judge Peterson frowned slightly. Most witnesses got nervous during this game. This guard seemed too calm. "How interesting," said the judge. "Let's continue. What was the weather like that night?" "It was raining lightly. There was a light fog. The temperature was about 52 degrees. Marcus answered without hesitation. "Truth or lie?" The judge said slowly, studying Marcus's face. "I'm going to say that's a lie. It wasn't raining that night according to the weather reports." Marcus reached into his pocket and pulled out a small notebook. "If I may, Your Honor, I noted the weather conditions every hour during my shift. At 10 p.m., light rain began. It was not heavy enough to appear in general weather reports for the city, but it was definitely raining at the museum grounds." The courtroom grew quiet. Judge Peterson stared at Marcus with new interest, wondering who this guard really was. The courtroom was very quiet now. Everyone looked at Marcus with surprise. Judge Peterson cleared his throat and fixed his glasses. He did not like being proved wrong, especially not by a simple guard. "Very well," said the judge. "Let's continue with our game. Tell me, Mr. Reynolds, did you see anyone else near the museum that night?" Marcus stood tall and spoke clearly. "Yes, Your Honor. At approximately 10:52 p.m., I saw a woman in a red coat walk past the museum gates. She walked by once going north, then returned 10 minutes later going south. She was carrying a black bag on her return trip that she did not have before. The judge leaned forward in his chair. That sounds like an important detail. Why didn't you include this in your first police statement? I did, Your Honor, Marcus replied. It's on page 3, paragraph 2 of my written statement. The police officer who took my statement may have missed it when preparing the summary. The defense lawyer jumped up. Objection, Your Honor. This witness is making claims about evidence not presented to the court. Judge Peterson waved his hand. Overruled. Let's check the full statement. The court clerk brought over the file. Judge Peterson flipped to page 3 and read silently. His eyebrows went up again. Well, Mr. Reynolds is correct. The information is indeed here, exactly as he described it. The judge looked at Marcus with new interest. Truth or lie? I'm going to say truth about the woman in the red coat. That is correct, Your Honor, Marcus said simply. The prosecutor smiled now. This witness was helping their case. The defendant, a man named James Wilson, shifted nervously in his seat. Mr. Reynolds, continued the judge, do you have any special training in observation or memory? Marcus hesitated for just a moment. He had to be careful now. I received standard Royal Guard training, which includes some memory exercises and observation techniques. Nothing special, Your Honor. Judge Peterson studied Marcus's face. Truth or lie? I'm going to say that's a lie. There's something more to your abilities, isn't there? The courtroom waited for Marcus's response. He took a small breath. Your Honor, Royal Guards are selected partly based on memory capability. I happen to have what some might call an exceptional memory. I can recall details others might miss. What Marcus did not say was that his memory had helped him finish 3 law degrees in record time. He did not mention that he could recite entire books after reading them once. He kept his biggest secrets hidden. I see, said the judge. He seemed to accept this answer. Let's move on to what you saw inside the museum after the alarm went off. Marcus described entering the museum with the police. He talked about the broken glass case. He mentioned the footprints on the floor. And then he said something that made everyone sit up straight. The most interesting thing was the alarm system, Your Honor. It had been turned off for exactly 3 minutes and 22 seconds before being turned back on. This suggests someone with inside knowledge of the system. The defendant's face went pale. This was not public information. How did this guard know this detail? Judge Peterson was impressed. Truth or lie? I'm going to say truth again. Correct, Your Honor, said Marcus. The defense lawyer stood up again. Your Honor, I must object. How could this witness possibly know the exact time the alarm was disabled? That information is restricted to the investigation team. Before the judge could respond, Marcus spoke. If I may explain, Your Honor. The alarm system has a backup log that records all activity. As the first responder with the police, I was present when the technician checked the system. The timestamp was clearly visible on the screen. The defense lawyer looked confused. The prosecutor looked pleased. And Judge Peterson looked at Marcus with growing respect and curiosity. This was no ordinary Royal Guard. The court took a short break. Marcus stood near the back wall, still and calm. People kept looking at him and whispering. In a small room nearby, Judge Peterson talked with both lawyers. Who is this guard? Asked the judge. He knows too many details. The prosecutor shrugged. He's just a witness, Your Honor. A very good witness with an excellent memory. The defense lawyer was not happy. I think he's been coached. No guard would know these things. When everyone returned to the courtroom, the game continued. Judge Peterson had new, harder questions ready. Mr. Reynolds, the judge began, can you tell the court about any fingerprints found at the scene? Marcus nodded. Yes, Your Honor. The police found 3 partial fingerprints on the glass case. They belonged to the museum cleaner, the curator, and a third person who has not been identified. They also found a full handprint on the wall near the emergency exit that matches the defendant's right hand. The defendant, James Wilson, jumped up. "That's a lie. I never touched that wall." The judge banged his gavel. "Sit down, Mr. Wilson." He turned to Marcus. "That's very specific information about evidence. How do you know this?" Marcus answered calmly. "As the first Royal Guard on scene, I was included in the initial evidence briefing. Officer Rodriguez showed me the fingerprint report because I asked if they had found any prints on the ceremonial sword display that I guard during day shifts." Judge Peterson thought for a moment. Truth or lie? "I'm going to say truth about the fingerprints." "Correct again, Your Honor," said Marcus. The crowd was getting excited now. The judge had not caught Marcus in a single lie. This never happened in his courtroom before. "Let's try something different," said the judge. "Mr. Reynolds, are you familiar with the legal concept of fruit of the poisonous tree?" The lawyers looked surprised. This was a legal question, not a fact question about the case. Why would the judge ask a guard about legal doctrine? Marcus kept his face calm, but inside he was careful. This was dangerous ground. He had written a paper on this very topic during his time at Harvard Law, but he could not reveal too much knowledge. "I believe it refers to evidence that comes from an illegal search, Your Honor. If the first evidence was collected illegally, then anything found because of it is also illegal to use in court." The courtroom went very quiet. The judge stared at Marcus. "That is correct, and quite well stated for someone without legal training." Judge Peterson leaned forward. "Truth or lie?" "I'm going to say that's not the full truth. You know more about law than you're letting on." Marcus felt trapped. He had to be careful with his answer. "Your Honor, Royal Guards receive basic training on legal matters related to our duties. We must understand search and seizure rules, evidence handling, and some constitutional principles. I may have explained it clearly, but I only know what I learned in training." This was not a complete lie. Guards did get some legal training. Marcus just didn't mention his 3 law degrees and years of advanced study. The judge seemed to accept this answer, but he looked suspicious. "Very well. Let's return to the case at hand." The prosecutor stood up. "Your Honor, I'd like to ask the witness about the security camera footage." "Proceed," said the judge. "Mr. Reynolds, what did the security cameras show on the night of the theft?" Marcus answered. "The main entrance camera showed nothing unusual. However, the camera covering the east hallway had a 6-minute gap in recording between 11:17 p.m. and 11:23 p.m. This happens to be the exact hallway leading to the room where the stolen items were kept." The defendant looked very worried now. His lawyer was writing notes quickly. "And how do you know about this gap in the footage?" asked the prosecutor. "I watched the security tapes with Officer Chen the morning after the theft," Marcus explained. "I noticed the time stamp jump forward while we were reviewing the footage." Judge Peterson nodded. "Truth or lie?" "Truth about the security footage." "Yes, Your Honor," said Marcus. The judge was becoming fascinated by this unusual witness who seemed to know everything about the case. The court session continued after lunch. Marcus returned to the witness stand. More people had come to watch now. Word had spread about the interesting guard who knew so much. Judge Peterson had new questions ready. He wanted to catch Marcus in a lie, just once. It had become a personal challenge. "Mr. Reynolds," the judge began, "tell us about the value of the stolen items." Marcus nodded. The main stolen item was a gold ceremonial dagger from the 16th century. Its official museum value is listed as $400,000. However, on the black market, it would be worth closer to $1 million because of its historical significance and the rubies in the handle. The judge raised his eyebrows. And how would a royal guard know about black market values? Last year, all guards received a special training about art theft. Your Honor, Marcus explained. The FBI sent an expert to teach us about how stolen items are sold illegally. They wanted us to understand why the items we protect are targeted. Judge Peterson thought about this. Truth or lie? I'm going to say truth. Correct, Your Honor, Marcus confirmed. The defense lawyer stood up. Your Honor, I have a question for the witness. Proceed, said the judge. Mr. Reynolds, you seem to know a lot about this case. Almost too much. Have you been talking to the prosecutors outside of court? Marcus shook his head. No, sir. I have not spoken to anyone from the prosecutor's office except during my official statement. Truth or lie? The defense lawyer asked the judge. Judge Peterson looked carefully at Marcus. Truth. I believe he's telling the truth. The defense lawyer tried again. Mr. Reynolds, isn't it true that you have a personal interest in seeing my client convicted? Didn't he once get you in trouble with your superiors at the Royal Guard? Marcus looked confused. No, sir. I had never met the defendant before this case. I have no personal connection to him at all. The defendant whispered something to his lawyer. The lawyer looked surprised, then embarrassed. I withdraw the question, Your Honor, the lawyer said. Judge Peterson was getting more interested in Marcus. This guard was unlike any witness he had seen before. He decided to try a very difficult question. Mr. Reynolds, explain to the court the difference between circumstantial evidence and direct evidence, and tell us which type is stronger in this case. The prosecutor jumped up. Objection. The witness is not a legal expert. Judge Peterson waved his hand. I'm just curious what he thinks. Overruled. Marcus took a small breath. This was dangerous. He knew the answer perfectly, of course. He had taught this very concept to first-year law students during his time at Columbia. But he had to be careful not to sound too knowledgeable. As I understand it, Your Honor, direct evidence directly proves a fact, like seeing someone take something. Circumstantial evidence is indirect, like finding someone with the stolen item later. In this case, we have mostly circumstantial evidence, the fingerprints, the security camera gap, the defendant's knowledge of the alarm system. The only direct evidence would be the museum night guard's testimony that he saw someone matching the defendant's height and build running from the building. The courtroom was silent. That was an excellent explanation, better than most law students could give. Judge Peterson stared at Marcus. That's remarkably clear and accurate. Truth or lie? I'm going to say there's something you're not telling us about your background. Marcus felt trapped again. He had to be careful. Your Honor, I read a lot in my free time. I find law interesting, but I am just a Royal Guard doing my duty as a witness. This was not exactly a lie. He was a Royal Guard. He did find law interesting. He just didn't mention his degrees or legal experience. The judge nodded slowly, not fully convinced. Let's continue with your testimony about the night in question. The prosecutor showed pictures from the crime scene. Marcus described exactly what he had seen when he arrived with the police. The display case was broken from the top, not the side as would be expected. This suggests the thief knew about the pressure sensors on the sides, but not about the weight sensor on the top. Judge Peterson was impressed again. Truth or lie? Truth. Yes, Your Honor, said Marcus. The defense lawyer was getting frustrated. His client looked more guilty with every answer Marcus gave. The court was now completely focused on Marcus. Even people who had been looking at their phones were now watching closely. Judge Peterson decided to try one more approach. Mr. Reynolds, the judge said, let's talk about the legal concept of mens rea. Can you explain what that means? The prosecutor looked confused. The defense lawyer sat up straight. This was definitely not a normal question for a witness. It was a test. Marcus knew he had to be very careful. Mens rea was a basic legal term that any first-year law student would know. It meant guilty mind in Latin and referred to criminal intent. Marcus had written an entire chapter about it in his unpublished book on criminal law. I believe it refers to whether someone meant to commit a crime, Your Honor, Marcus said simply. It's about their intention. Judge Peterson nodded. And how would you explain the 4 levels of mens rea? Now the lawyers were really surprised. This was an advanced legal question. The prosecutor started to object, but then stopped, curious to hear the answer. Marcus knew he had to sound less knowledgeable than he really was. "I'm not sure about 4 levels, Your Honor. I just know that the law cares about whether someone did something on purpose or by accident." This was a deliberate understatement of his knowledge. Marcus knew perfectly well about purposely, knowingly, recklessly, and negligently, the 4 levels of mens rea taught in every criminal law class. Judge Peterson studied Marcus closely. "Truth or lie?" "I'm going to say that's a lie. You know more than you're letting on." Marcus kept his face calm. "Your Honor, I'm just a royal guard. I've picked up some legal terms from working in courts, but I'm not a lawyer." Technically true. He wasn't currently practicing as a lawyer. He was indeed a royal guard. The judge decided to move on. Back to the case at hand. "Mr. Reynolds, did you notice anything unusual about the defendant when you saw him being questioned at the museum that night?" Marcus nodded. "Yes, Your Honor." Mr. Wilson knew the names of several guards who weren't working that night. He asked about them specifically. Only someone familiar with the museum security rotation would know those names. The defendant looked down at the table. His lawyer whispered to him urgently. Judge Peterson turned to the defendant. "Truth or lie?" "Truth about the guard names." Marcus nodded. "Yes, Your Honor." The defense lawyer stood up quickly. "Your Honor, I request a short recess to speak with my client." Judge Peterson checked his watch. "We'll take 15 minutes." As everyone was leaving the courtroom, a woman approached Marcus in the hallway. She wore expensive clothes and had serious eyes. "That was impressive in there," she said quietly. "Thank you, ma'am," Marcus replied politely. "I'm Sarah Chen, head partner at Chen, Williams, and Johnson Law Firm. We should talk after this is over. Here's my card." She handed him a small white card. Marcus took it carefully. "I'm just doing my duty as a witness, Ms. Chen." She smiled slightly. "No one explains mens rea that way unless they've been to law school, even if they're pretending they haven't." Before Marcus could answer, she walked away. He put the card in his pocket, his heart beating faster. Someone had noticed his secret. When court resumed, the mood had changed. The defense lawyer looked defeated. "Your Honor, my client wishes to change his plea to guilty." The courtroom erupted in surprised talk. Judge Peterson banged his gavel for quiet. "Order. Order in the court." When everyone was silent, he continued. "Mr. Wilson, is this true? You wish to plead guilty to the charges?" The defendant stood up. "Yes, Your Honor, I'm guilty." Judge Peterson nodded. "Very well. We'll schedule sentencing for next week." He turned to Marcus. "Mr. Reynolds, it seems our game of truth or lie has had quite an effect. Thank you for your testimony. You are excused." As Marcus walked toward the door, Judge Peterson called out to him. "Mr. Reynolds, one moment." Marcus turned. "Yes, Your Honor." "Harvard or Yale?" the judge asked with a small smile. The courtroom went completely silent. Everyone looked between the judge and the royal guard. Marcus kept his face still, but inside he knew his secret was out. He had shown too much knowledge. Should he admit the truth now? The courtroom was so quiet you could hear the clock on the wall. Everyone waited for Marcus to answer the judge's question. Harvard or Yale? Marcus took a deep breath. His secret was about to come out. He had worked so hard to keep it hidden for the past 5 years. But now, standing in this courtroom, he realized he couldn't lie to a judge directly. "Harvard, Your Honor," Marcus said quietly. "Class of 2018. Top of my class." Gasps filled the courtroom. The prosecutor dropped his pen. The defense lawyer's mouth fell open. No one had expected this answer. Judge Peterson smiled. "I thought so. No one explains legal concepts that clearly without formal training. But why are you working as a royal guard with a Harvard law degree?" Marcus stood tall in his uniform. "My father was a royal guard for 30 years, Your Honor. Before he died, I promised him I would serve at least 5 years to honor his memory. I kept that promise while continuing my legal studies in private. The judge looked impressed. Continuing your studies? You mean you have more than one law degree? Marcus nodded. Harvard, Columbia, and Oxford, Your Honor. I completed my Oxford degree through their distance learning program while serving as a guard. The courtroom erupted in surprised talk. Judge Peterson banged his gavel again. Order, order. When the room was quiet, he turned back to Marcus. 3 law degrees from the top schools in the world, and you're standing guard duty. Yes, Your Honor. My 5 years of service ends next month, actually. I was planning to start looking for legal work then. Sarah Chen, the lawyer who had given Marcus her card, stood up from her seat in the audience. Your Honor, my firm would be very interested in speaking with Mr. Reynolds about his future plans. 2 other lawyers in the audience stood up as well, offering their business cards. Marcus felt his face grow warm with embarrassment. This was not how he had planned to start his legal career. Judge Peterson laughed. It seems you'll have plenty of job offers, Mr. Reynolds. But I have one more question for you. Did you publish any legal articles during your time as a guard? Marcus hesitated. Yes, Your Honor. Several articles in the Harvard Law Review and the Columbia Law Journal. I used a pen name. The judge's eyes widened. What pen name? Minsta Justice, Your Honor. Now even Judge Peterson looked shocked. Your M's are Justice. I cited your article on digital evidence in one of my rulings last year. It's one of the most influential papers on the topic in the past decade. Marcus nodded modestly. Thank you, Your Honor. I wrote most of that during night shifts at the palace. A reporter in the back of the courtroom was taking notes quickly. Tomorrow, Marcus knew, his story would be in all the newspapers. His quiet life as a royal guard was over. Judge Peterson shook his head in amazement. Well, Mr. Reynolds, it seems our little game of truth or lie has revealed quite a truth today. You are excused from the witness stand. I look forward to seeing where your legal career takes you. Marcus nodded respectfully. Thank you, Your Honor. As Marcus walked out of the courtroom, people moved aside to let him pass. Some tried to hand him business cards. Others just stared in amazement. The royal guard with 3 law degrees and a brilliant legal mind was now the most interesting person in the building. Outside, Marcus took off his royal guard hat and looked at it. For 5 years, this uniform had been his life. He had kept his promise to his father. Now it was time for a new chapter. His phone rang. It was his commander at the Royal Guard headquarters. Reynolds, his commander said, "What's this I hear about you being some kind of legal genius? It's all over the courthouse." Marcus smiled. "It's a long story, sir. I'll explain everything tomorrow at the morning briefing." "Well, whatever it is, good job in court today. The captain wants to see you first thing tomorrow." Marcus put his phone away and looked up at the blue sky. His secret was out, but he felt relief, not worry. He had honored his father's memory, and now could follow his true calling in the law. The next morning, Marcus arrived at the Royal Guard headquarters in his perfect uniform. Other guards looked at him differently now. Some nodded with new respect. Others seemed confused. Word had spread fast about what happened in court. Captain Richards was waiting in his office. He was an older man with gray hair who had served with Marcus's father years ago. "Come in, Reynolds," the captain said. "Sit down." Marcus sat across from the captain's desk. "So," Captain Richards began, "you've been keeping secrets from us. 3 law degrees, Harvard, Columbia, Oxford, and all those articles you wrote. Why didn't you tell anyone?" Marcus looked down at his hands. "I wanted to honor my father by being just a guard, sir. Not a lawyer pretending to be a guard. I wanted to experience what he experienced without special treatment." The captain nodded slowly. "Your father would be proud. He always said you were the smartest person he knew. Now I see he wasn't exaggerating." He pushed a folder across the desk. "These came in for you this morning. Job offers from 12 different law firms, plus 3 requests for interviews from newspapers. And this. He handed Marcus an official-looking letter. Marcus opened it and read quickly. This is from the Supreme Court. Yes, said the captain. Justice Williams wants to meet with you about a clerk position. That's quite an honor. Marcus felt overwhelmed. Yesterday he was just a royal guard doing his duty. Today he was being offered jobs at top law firms and a meeting with a Supreme Court justice. I still have 1 month left in my 5-year commitment, sir, Marcus said. Captain Richards smiled. Consider it completed early. Your father would want you to take these opportunities. The guard will always be part of you, but it's time for you to use that brilliant mind of yours for something bigger. Marcus stood up and saluted. Thank you, sir. It has been an honor to serve. The captain returned the salute. The honor has been ours, Reynolds. As Marcus cleared out his locker, his fellow guards came by to congratulate him. Some seemed surprised, but many were happy for him. Always knew you were too smart for this job, said Officer Lee, slapping him on the back. Reading those big books during breaks, taking notes all the time. Another guard, Officer Rodriguez, looked confused. So all those times you helped me understand legal stuff for my night classes, you were actually a Harvard lawyer. Marcus smiled. Yes, but I enjoyed helping. You're going to be a great lawyer yourself someday. By noon, Marcus had packed his few belongings from the guard quarters. He stood outside the palace in regular clothes, not his uniform, for the first time in 5 years. It felt strange. His phone rang. It was Sarah Chen, the lawyer from the courtroom. Mr. Reynolds, she said, have you considered my firm's offer? I'm considering all options, Miss Chen, Marcus replied politely. Well, consider this. We're offering you a starting salary of $300,000 per year, plus benefits, and we want you to head our new digital evidence department, based on your published papers. Marcus was surprised. That was much more money than he expected. That's very generous. We recognize talent, Mr. Reynolds, and after what I saw in court yesterday, you have more talent than most lawyers with 20 years of experience. Marcus thanked her and said he would think about it. As he hung up, another call came in. It was from Judge Peterson. Reynolds, the judge said, I hope I'm not interrupting your day of fame. Not at all, Your Honor, Marcus said. I wanted to apologize for putting you on the spot in my courtroom. But I also wanted to invite you to dinner tonight. My brother, Justice Peterson from the Supreme Court, will be there. He's very interested in meeting you. Marcus could hardly believe what was happening. I would be honored, Your Honor. As he put his phone away, a newspaper stand caught his eye. His face was on the front page. The headline read, Royal Guard revealed as legal genius in court drama. Marcus bought a copy and sat on a park bench to read the story about himself. His life had changed completely in just 24 hours. That evening, Marcus arrived at Judge Peterson's large house. He wore his best suit, which felt strange after years in a uniform. A servant opened the door and led him to a dining room where several people were already seated. Judge Peterson stood up. Ah, here he is, the man of the hour. He came over and shook Marcus's hand. Mr. Reynolds, I'd like you to meet my brother, Justice William Peterson of the Supreme Court. An older man with kind eyes stood up from the table. Mr. Reynolds, it's a pleasure. I've read all your papers. Your work on digital evidence is outstanding. Marcus felt his heart beating fast. Thank you, Justice Peterson. That means a lot coming from you. Please call me William. And I believe you know Sarah Chen. He pointed to the lawyer from the courtroom, who was also at the table. Sarah smiled at Marcus. We meet again, Mr. Reynolds. Judge Peterson laughed. I invited Sarah because she wouldn't stop calling me to get your phone number. I figured it was easier to just have her here. Marcus sat down at the table, feeling a bit overwhelmed. There were 2 other guests, the district attorney and a dean from the state law school. During dinner, the conversation focused on Marcus's unusual path. So you worked night shifts as a guard while writing legal articles that judges cite in their rulings? The district attorney asked. That's incredible. Marcus nodded. I made a promise to my father that I would serve 5 years as he did, but I didn't want to waste my legal education, so I kept studying and writing. The dean from the law school leaned forward, and no one knew, not even your fellow guards. A few suspected I knew more about law than I let on, Marcus admitted, but no one knew about the degrees or the articles. Justice Peterson put down his fork. Mr. Reynolds, I'll be direct. I'm looking for a new clerk at the Supreme Court, someone with fresh ideas and a brilliant mind. I'd like you to consider the position. The table went quiet. A Supreme Court clerkship was one of the highest honors a young lawyer could receive. Most clerks went on to become judges themselves, or partners at top firms. I don't know what to say, Marcus stammered. Sarah Chen spoke up. Say yes, of course. You can always come work at my firm after the clerkship ends. The offer will still be there. Marcus looked around the table. These important people all believed in him. They saw his potential. It was everything he had worked for during those long nights of study, while everyone thought he was just a simple guard. I would be honored to accept, Justice Peterson, Marcus said finally. Everyone at the table applauded. Judge Peterson raised his glass in a toast. To Marcus Reynolds, from Royal Guard to Supreme Court in one day. A record, I believe. After dinner, Judge Peterson took Marcus aside. I have something to show you. He led Marcus to his home office and took a framed photo from the wall. Do you recognize this man? Marcus looked at the old photo of 2 young royal guards standing at attention. That's my father on the right. He would have been about 20 years old here. Yes, said the judge. And the other guard was my father. They served together for 10 years. He smiled at Marcus's surprised face. I knew your father well. He came to my law school graduation. He was very proud when you got into Harvard. You knew who I was all along? Marcus asked. Judge Peterson nodded. I suspected when I saw your name on the witness list. I thought it was strange that Sam Reynolds' son, the Harvard law genius, would be testifying as a royal guard. But I wasn't completely sure until you started explaining legal concepts in my courtroom. Is that why you asked me those legal questions? Marcus asked. Yes. I wanted to see if you would reveal your knowledge or keep pretending. The judge put the photo back on the wall. Your father was a good man who believed in duty and honor. You've made him proud by keeping your promise. But now it's time for you to follow your own path. Marcus felt tears in his eyes. Thank you, Your Honor. As he was leaving, Sarah Chen was waiting by the door. Congratulations on the clerkship, Mr. Reynolds. That's quite an honor. Thank you, Marcus said. And please, call me Marcus. She smiled. Marcus then. I meant what I said in there. When your clerkship ends, come see me. My firm would be lucky to have you. Marcus nodded. I'll remember that. As he walked to his car, Marcus looked up at the stars. His father had always told him to reach for them. Now, after 5 years of hiding his abilities, he was finally going to do just that. 1 year later, Marcus sat in his office at the Supreme Court. The walls were lined with law books. His desk was covered with case files. Through his window, he could see the city spread out below. There was a knock at his door. Come in, Marcus called. Justice Peterson entered, smiling. Hard at work, I see. Marcus stood up respectfully. Yes, sir. I'm finishing the draft opinion for the digital evidence case. Excellent. I knew you were the right person for that one. The justice sat down in a chair. Your clerkship is ending next month. Have you thought about what you'll do next? Marcus nodded. I've had several offers. Sarah Chen still wants me to join her firm as a partner. The state university has offered me a teaching position, and the district attorney has suggested I apply to be a prosecutor. All good options, Justice Peterson said. But I have another suggestion. He handed Marcus an envelope. Open it. Marcus opened the envelope and read the letter inside. His eyes widened. This is a nomination for a federal judgeship, but I only practiced law officially for a year. Your published works span 5 years, Justice Peterson pointed out, and your work here has been outstanding. The president believes you would make an excellent judge, despite your unusual career path, or perhaps because of it. Marcus was speechless. Becoming a federal judge was a dream he never thought possible, at least not for many years. You don't have to decide right away, Justice Peterson said, but I think you would be excellent on the bench. You have both the brilliant legal mind and the common sense that comes from working with regular people as a guard. After the justice left, Marcus sat thinking about how much his life had changed. Just over a year ago, he had been standing in a courtroom in his Royal Guard uniform, playing truth or lie with Judge Peterson. Now he was being offered a federal judgeship. His phone rang. It was Sarah Chen. "Have you made a decision yet?" she asked. "My partners are getting impatient." "Something new has come up," Marcus said. "Can we meet for coffee to discuss it?" Later that day, they sat at a small cafe. Sarah listened as Marcus explained about the judgeship nomination. "That's incredible," she said when he finished. "Youngest federal judge nominee in decades." "Do you think I should accept?" Marcus asked. Sarah considered the question. "You'd be turning down a lot of money if you don't join a firm like mine." "I know," Marcus said, "but money was never my main goal." "Then I think you should accept," Sarah said. "You have a unique perspective, and the courts need more judges who understand both the law and real-world experiences." As they talked, Marcus noticed a man in a Royal Guard uniform waiting at the counter for coffee. It was Officer Rodriguez, his former colleague. "Excuse me a moment," Marcus said to Sarah. He walked over to the guard. "Rodriguez, how are you?" The guard turned, surprised. "Reynolds, or should I say, Mr. Supreme Court Clerk." They shook hands warmly. "How's guard life?" Marcus asked. "Good. I made sergeant last month." Rodriguez smiled proudly. "And I'm still taking those night classes. Only 1 year left until I finish law school." "That's excellent," Marcus said. "If you ever need a reference or help finding a position afterward, let me know." Rodriguez glanced at Sarah, who was watching them. "Is that Sarah Chen, the famous lawyer?" Marcus nodded. "Yes. We're discussing my next career move. I heard rumors you might become a judge," Rodriguez said. "Is it true?" "It's a possibility," Marcus admitted. Rodriguez shook his head in amazement. From guard to judge in just over a year. That's got to be some kind of record. Marcus laughed. "It's been a strange journey." "Your father would be proud," Rodriguez said. "He always told us his son would do great things." That evening, Marcus visited his father's grave. He placed fresh flowers beside the headstone, which had a Royal Guard emblem carved into it. "Well, Dad," Marcus said quietly, "I kept my promise. 5 years in the Guard, just like you wanted. And now they want to make me a federal judge." He smiled. "I think I'm going to accept. I can help more people as a judge than in any other role." A gentle breeze moved through the cemetery trees. Marcus felt at peace with his decision. The next morning, he called Justice Peterson. "I've decided to accept the nomination." "Sir." "Excellent," the justice said. "The president will be pleased, and I believe you'll make a fine judge, Marcus." 6 months later, Marcus wore the black robes of a federal judge as he entered his courtroom for the first time. As he sat at the bench, he remembered standing in a courtroom in his Royal Guard uniform not long ago. "All rise," the bailiff called. The Honorable Judge Marcus Reynolds presiding.